Hi, I'm Christian Triola, author of The Missing Method for Guitar Books. And so with this video, I'm going to do something a little bit more unique and just talk about why is it that guitar players tend to have a difficult time reading music. And so I have some thoughts on that I wanted to kind of explore. So these reasons aren't in any kind of order. So the first reason that I came up with is that there are a lot of different places to play the same exact notes on the guitar. So if you're trying to sight read something, you have to choose which version of that note am I going to play. So let's take a look at an example of that. If I play the first string open, that's the note E. So if I see that on paper, that's the top space of the treble clef. But the top space of the treble clef can also be right there. Second string, 5th fret, or right here. 3rd string, 9th fret, or way up here. 4th string, what is that, 14th fret, or even way up here. So which one do you choose? I mean, the one you choose, of course, would make sense with the other notes surrounding it, obviously. But sometimes your note choice will sound a little bit better if you play it on one string versus another. So that can make it difficult. You don't know which one to grab. Now that, of course, is one element. The second one, I think, is the biggest hindrance to guitar players, and that is reading rhythms. It's relatively easy to remember, okay, that dot means I put finger here. Okay, you get that after some practice. You do that a bunch of times. However, the rhythm, how long or how short do you hold that out for? You know, what is your meter? Is it 4/4 or 3/4? You know, is it cut time? What's the speed? Is this a fast song or a slow song? So when you're reading something, it can be really difficult to try to figure out what the rhythm is until you get good at reading rhythms. So what I recommend you do is learn how to play drums. I mean, seriously, it's a lot of fun to do, but of course drum kits can get very expensive very quickly. They take up a lot of room in your house, and they're really loud. You know, with guitar, I can unplug this thing in practice and nobody's bothered. But with drums, you can't really unplug them unless you get an electric set, which you can do, but still it does make sound when you're hitting those pads. So here's a suggestion I happen to have with me right here. If you don't want to just learn drums, get a practice drum pad and some drumsticks. And what this allows you to do is tap out and count out basic rhythms. So if you're not sure what 16th note groups should sound like, learn how to play it on a drum pad, learn how to strum it on your guitar, and then when you go to read it, it makes it a lot easier to read your notes. So I highly recommend these tools as well as practicing those same rhythms with just a single chord on your guitar. All right, another element that kind of gets in the way of guitar players learning how to read music is tablature. Now, I love tablature. I use it all the time, probably daily. And yet I still know how to read notes, and I still read notes. And it's because both things gives you different information. The tablature doesn't always show you the rhythm, so you have to know how it sounds or be able to read the rhythm in the notation if there is notation. Also, tablature can kind of get in the way if you're learning how to read music because your eye is going to want to go to the tab. It's a little bit easier to read. In fact, it's a lot easier to read because it's just coordinates. It's just where your fingers fall on the fretboard rather than telling you what sounds you're playing, which is what the notation tells you. So even though I have no problems with tab and I encourage you to keep reading tabs, if you want to learn how to read music, read stuff without tabs. That way you're forced to just read the notation in front of you and you'll get much better at reading the music itself. Another problem that guitar players come across is finding material to actually practice with. Now, you can buy all kinds of song books. You could get the Real Book, which is full of jazz standards. There's one I like, which is called the Easy Beatles Book or something like that. And it's just Beatles melodies. Now, they're not in the same key that the Beatles play them in, but it's just great for practicing. But what happens when you run out of that material? I've heard from classical guitar players that you can go to the libraries and get stuff from violin music and just practice sight reading that, or get any treble clef instrument and practice sight reading that, which is useful because it kind of gets you away from guitar-friendly tunes. On the other hand, not everybody has access to that, so it can be kind of difficult to find stuff to practice practice, especially when you're first starting. So that's an obstacle that can be overcome by either getting more books, or going to the library, or just having a good lesson book to use. All right, so what do you do about some of these problems? Well, I do have one suggestion, besides going to the library and finding some material to sight read, which is always a good idea. And that is, as you may have guessed, this book right here. This is one that I wrote, The Missing Method for Guitar Note Reading Series. This is book 1 in that series, and it solves a lot of these problems. First of all, it only focuses on one section of the neck, much like a lot of method books do, where you just learn the notes in this region. But then the second book in the series just focuses on the middle part of the neck. The third book comes up here. The fourth book connects those areas. And then the final book teaches you all these high notes up here. So you'll be able to read anywhere on the neck with the whole series. Now that takes time, of course, but this first book is a great place to start from because you get just one area of the neck. You can focus in on that. There's no tablature. So if you're tempted to look at that tab, you can't do that in this book, which is one of the benefits of the book. Also, it gives you specific sections where you just practice rhythm. In fact, here's an example of that right now. We have dotted rhythms. You can see I just opened up to a random page. You don't see the traditional staff. Instead, you see what looks like snare drum music. So you just work on playing rhythms as a separate element, which is something that a lot of guitar players don't spend time on and really should, and that will help your sight reading a lot. This also goes through all 12 keys, so you won't just be learning a few notes and then that's it. You learn every single note that you can in this open position. Also, too, it gives you a lot to practice. In fact, each section in some ways almost has too much to practice. And that was done on purpose so that if you skip ahead, you can always come back and try something new to practice with that includes notes that you've already gone over. So it's that constant review. And a lot of that review is built into the book. So that's why I had to mention it. It does help with note reading if that's something that you're interested in and want to check out. And you can do that, of course, at our website, themissingmethod.com. We have these books. We have books on chords, of course, as well, technique, and a whole lot more. So please do like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Get to practicing, and I will see you in the next video.